So look, in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to be joined by Alex Hurn from Sillence Hurn. So look, massive thanks to Alex for being on the panel this coming Monday. I never considered, as I said, doing Mondays this long. It's our 11th Monday in a row. Some point we'll be definitely taking a break from doing it weekly, going bi-weekly, fortnightly or monthly. Although looking at what a poll suggested, I did a poll on Zoom the other day with our Monday listeners. They were keen for it to be at the exact same time. I've had to make a slight change because I couldn't quite work out an Eventbrite setting on their new system, so had to change it by 10 minutes, but I'm sure 10 minutes isn't going to affect things too much. So from the 22nd it becomes 9:30 in the morning rather than 9:40. Presentation still kicking off about 10 o'clock in the morning. So look, this morning I'm going to be joined, if it all goes to plan, hopefully in the next 30 seconds or so, with Alex Hurn of Sillence Hurn. So Alex is on a panel this coming Monday morning. It's focused on the office sector, one of the biggest shake-ups post-COVID-19. Also going to be on a panel. Oh, there we are. So look, let's go straight over to Alex. So hopefully any second now, Alex will be joining myself if I press the right. So Alex, massive thanks for joining myself. Alex is based in Hampshire, Sillence Hurn, himself and David Sillence. So massive thanks, Alex. So look, the focus of Monday morning for the listeners is the office sector. So I know it's one topic you're definitely interested in. I did have to take a little bit of persuasion to have that as a topic. So massive thanks. Obviously, I'm a big fan of flexible workspace, but your viewpoint is slightly different. You're looking at it from the office to resi side. So, or is that slightly wrong? Are you looking at it more holistically than that?
Well, I mean, we assist a lot of office owners with general sort of commercial property services, so dilapidations, lease advisory, and space planning. And yeah, I mean, obviously, the conversation on Monday will be around how we feel that the market's going to change and the outlook for the market, the office market generally. So yeah, it should be an interesting debate. I think it's more and more news is coming out really around a lot of the pension funds looking to move out of the office, eventually move more into the industrial.
I'll say that again, Alex. I love it.
Still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I lost you in that conversation.
Yeah, so I mean, there's obviously a lot of news coming out about a lot of the bigger pension funds looking to move their asset classes and ownerships more towards industrial and warehouse moving forward. So I think obviously that's going to provide people that new investors or opportunists to purchase their office space, which they're looking to get rid of.
So let me just switch camera. Sorry. So look,
is your wife joining us, Brendan, as well?
No, definitely not. I'm trying to escape. To be fair, I'm trying to put on a different camera where I will be in a different room or something. So look. So you think, Alex? What makes you think this? What data are you looking at in terms of when you say you think large, I don't know what your wording was, but large corporates are looking more at industrial rather than office? Is that what you said just a moment or two ago?
Well, a lot of the larger pension funds will be looking more, even though a lot of their portfolio is already based in industrial, but I think they'll be moving it more, even more so into industrial. So they'll be looking to offload potential office buildings where they can't guarantee the yields on a 5 to 10 year return at the moment, because obviously no one knows when the market's going to be. So I think that's going to provide, especially co-working companies, an opportunity to purchase that good space. So probably a lot of central London space or in city centres. And I read an article this morning that WeWork already looking around, sniffing around ING's disposal of some of their assets in central London. So yeah, I think that's going to be the new norm, really.
That's interesting about WeWork, because and maybe what I hear in the open market isn't always correct, that WeWork own strife. So why would you be looking at more acquisitions?
Because I don't know, because they're probably hoping that there's going to be a big uptake in sort of more flexible options for occupiers moving forward. I don't think occupiers are going to want such larger space. Obviously, they're going to have to take into account the fact that in the post-COVID world, it's going to be a different working space anyway. There's going to be a lot more. There's going to have to be more space between desks, more working space for individuals, and obviously protection and PPE in place as well. So I mean that's the sort of initial response.
Interesting. So look, you're actually based in Hampshire. Do you see regional differences? Because this is a question I asked yesterday as well about regional differences. Do you see that being an issue? Do you think possibly where you're based, I think you're based in Southampton. I know it's not a million miles from London, but it's a very, very different environment to London.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the way the city centres are set up, it's normally it's similar in the way that they are similar in the way that London works. Really, I mean, the city centre, if you're near to a train station, if you're in a good area where a lot of other businesses are, your rents, that's going to be the sort of core hub of business and office space, and that's where rents are going to be highest. So yeah, I mean, I think they will always remain some form of office class, those buildings, because there needs to be some form of central working hub in cities and town centres. But again, it's going to be like I feel like it'll be a bit of a second wave of PD sort of office to resi conversions for more stock that would become available, which haven't got the yields for sort of normal commercial investors. That would be provide an opportunity for developers to pick up again. Obviously, where we saw the PD.
So if you slow down there for just 1 second. So you're talking about a second wave of PD, permitted development for office to resi. So look, from my understanding, it's not so simple. There's lots of restrictions in terms of not all offices can you convert into resi. It's not straightforward. There are challenges. Do you want to just elaborate on one of the two challenges? I'm sure there's more than one or two, but
yeah, I mean, in some ways offices are really good for residential conversions because you get usually you've got a lot of parking, and it's quite accessible. But on the other hand, the actual building design itself is difficult. You have large square floor plates which are difficult to subdivide up. Obviously, resi requirements, you have to have natural fresh air and ventilation and natural light into most habitable rooms. So obviously, there's always a challenge with getting that, especially with.
And that is the key challenge, isn't it? About the natural light.
Yeah.
Unless
exactly.
the government relax legislation on that, and do you think that's likely?
I don't think so. I think that if anything, it will go the other way. It's going to become even more important for, even more of a priority for governments to insist on a good design and sustainable design for residential units. So it would be tricky, but I mean, if you can, it all depends on the price and where the price sits really. Because obviously I've looked at schemes before where they've looked at cutting an atrium into the middle of an office building.
Again?
I've looked at office schemes before where the developers looked at cutting an atrium through the centre of the building. So obviously, and then providing light to all the remaining spaces from both sides. But obviously that's very expensive exercise, and not every scheme can facilitate that.
So look, we've briefly looked at some regional differences. We've briefly looked at WeWork and flexible space. Just for the listeners out there, the other panelists on Monday include Gavin Gallagher from East Point. You've got Will Stokes from CoSpace. It was fascinating speaking to Gavin yesterday because lots of challenges in terms of the office sector. So I know Monday should be on a positive light, but he was talking definitely about some of the challenges, one-way systems in terms of staircases, a bit of a minefield, to be fair. People exiting the building from a different entrance to the one they enter from as well. So again, how long is this going to last? I really don't know. I don't think anyone in the UK really knows how long these changes are going to be on board for. So look, what do you think the key questions to tackle on Monday about the office sector is? What do you think the top 3 issues to cover?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, obviously we've got Gavin. Obviously, like you just said, the Gavin's on the panel, so he'll be able to give us a really good insight into, yeah, like you've just said, the actual difficulties and challenges that are going to come from our investors and owners' perspective. Obviously, you've got Will Stokes on there as well, who's going to be looking more from opportunities for co-working sections and how he can potentially capitalise on the situation. And is it Darryl on there as well?
Karen. So Karen Bennett.
Okay.
I swapped Daryl Norcott to almost the end of the month, and Karen Bennett. So she's one of the partners at Lendwell. She will be on there. So she she came from Shawbrook as well.
Okay. So obviously Karen, we had to give good insight into the how the sort of lending market's looking at office space and what their predictions are, and then little old me, hopefully be able to share some knowledge as well on what we're experiencing in the surveying market.
So, sure. I was going to say one issue, and it's fascinating. I was looking at something late last night. It was about data analytics on commercial, and this is something I've spoken to Daryl about as well. Commercial data isn't that readily available. So where does all your data come from? Where do you do your research, Alex? Because from my understanding, lots of the data which is available is for larger scale projects. So maybe it's for the WeWorks, but maybe this is a good question for Will, to be fair, more than yourself. But how does his size project is very different, I would say, to a WeWork. So how can you get good data on smaller size projects?
A lot of the bigger firms like LSH Jones Lang, they will all use CoStar. So that's essentially the database which stores all of their transactional data, lease data, rent data, essentially. So that's probably the sort of the main market, the main database the market uses for transactions. And yeah, I suppose that is that. I mean, each company will hold their own database as well and have their own opinions on where the market's going to go. But CoStar is the area where people store data. Yeah.
Sure. Would you personally be looking at CoStar or some other tools, some other data like Datcha, for example?
Haven't heard of Datcha.
Sorry?
Haven't heard of Datcha.
Okay, so that's for the commercial space as well. And also interesting, I've got, so I like data. Interesting, I've got John Williams on Monday morning. John's from the Insight Group. I don't know if you've heard of the Insight Group. So they hold a significant amount of data in terms of commercial space, specifically office space as well. So it'd be interesting to hear their views. We were discussing yesterday regional differences as well, and differences overseas to the UK market. So Alex, I know you've upgraded the website significantly of Sillence Hurn. Just a bit of a plug for Sillence Hurn. What would you say some of the most useful resources on that website are?
Well, actually, there's a lot of content on there. I mean, there's 60 pages of sort of SEO content. So, I mean, that's all based around the services we provide. So there's a really good insights and there's into sort of explanations about those services. So there's a good page on project management and why, and the Sillence Hurn sort of ethos around that role and how that can be utilised by a developer and obviously save them money. There's also good pages on home buyer surveys. I mean, how useful they are when you're purchasing a property and the use of that, or purchasing an office for that matter. And yeah, and there's obviously there's blogs, insights, case studies around our previous projects, and there's also some pretty pictures of the team members on there as well. So yeah, no, it's yeah.
So in terms of the team members, for the listeners out there, Alex, just explain how you're different to David. So not everyone will understand that there's a difference between you and David. It's obvious for yourself, but for the listeners out there, obviously there's an age difference as well, but I'm talking about profession. David will look at certain things you won't look at. So you're much more focused on the project monitoring and PMing, where David is much more looking at valuations. Have I got that correct?
Not valuations, but he does a lot of party wall surveying and dilapidations. And he's more, how do I put it? He's more sort of professional services driven. So he will be there to look at more building defects, defect diagnosis, party wall, dilapidations, schedule of condition. Whereas, yeah, like you said, obviously the project services is kind of more under my remit. So obviously it works quite well with differentiation there between the services.
I never asked you this before, but I take it you both worked in the same company beforehand, and that's how you connected.
Yeah. So I was there for 6 years, and David was there for about 28 years. So
wow.
He was a long-standing member of the team there. Yeah.
So that was quite a brave move. I don't know if brave is the right word, but interesting move, certainly, to move from being there to creating your own company, which is called Sillence Hurn, because it's the surnames of both of you.
Yeah, no, it was for him. To be fair, it was a good move, and I don't think he's ever looked back though. I mean, it was probably more me sort of trying to be ambitious and coax him away from the firm, to be honest. But he kind of agreed, and he saw the opportunity, and yeah, it's gone well so far. So hopefully it can continue.
Look, final question. So, look, I've just gone for a short walk, literally where I live. Things are getting back to normal, or some sense of normality. How is it in Southampton as well? Do you see some sense of normality in terms of how busy things are, what's open? And of course, we could go into a lot more detail than this, but it's literally a 1 minute answer. Do you see this temporary norm for being quite a while now?
Yeah, I mean, over the last couple of weeks, obviously it has picked up. Some form of normality has kind of resumed in respect of people are back to work, so it's easy to get hold of them. People are coming back off furlough, so things are starting to move a little bit easier in respect of commercially getting things done. And getting access to buildings has been one of our major issues. In respect of obviously the retail, everything's mostly still closed up. I think there are some obviously some restaurants, cafes, etc. now doing takeaway and takeout, which obviously could bring more people in and around the town centre. But obviously here we're a big port-based city, so obviously there seems to be more and more ships coming in with cargo. And the industry seems to be moving a little bit quicker, but nowhere near as it should be.
That is interesting about cargo and container ships, because I was speaking to someone who's attended my meets many times and discussing art. So they insure mostly art, which gets transported overseas by marine, and they said that's gone down significantly. So be interesting to see when that goes up again and so forth. Look, how can people find out more about Sillence? What's the website? So or LinkedIn?
Yeah, so our obviously we're on all social platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Our website is cnsultancy.co.uk, where obviously, as we've discussed, you can find some good content around us and our services. And obviously all our direct emails are on there, so if you wanted to drop me a line or give me a call, then yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Alex, I just want to say massive thanks, and thanks to our listeners as well. Whether you're listening live or at a later time on Instagram, so this is going to be on the IGTV as well. So massive thanks, Alex. Massive thanks to our listeners. If you've got someone interesting for me to interview on IGTV, do let me know, or other platforms such as my podcast, which is Brendan Speaks Property. So massive thanks, Alex, and thanks to our listeners.
Cheers.